Company team, building event. My best friend, Katie Miller, drew Truth or Dare and ended up kissing my boyfriend of 7 years. Steven Nelson froze for a moment, then cupped the back of her head and kissed her back. The room fell silent. Every pair of eyes turned to me. They thought I'd throw a tantrum. Instead, I started clapping. Nice kiss. How about one more? Steven turned his head to look at me, his body stiff. Katie, panting in his arms, whispered breathlessly, Steven, you still taste the same. A flash of confusion and anger flickered in Steven's eyes, like he couldn't believe what he just heard. But a second later, his expression cleared. He pushed Katie away and tried to explain, Katie and I are just friends. I thought she was you. Steven Nelson was the big boss, no one dared to question him. Someone even tried to cover for him, President Nelson had too much to drink. Mistaking someone isn't that unusual. I glanced at Katie's glossy lips and bold features. Honestly, I could kind of see the resemblance. She shot me a provocative smile, as if saying, so what if you've been with him for years? I'm back now, and he's mine. I smirked. Well, since the vibe is already here. Want me to book you to a hotel room with one big bed? Steven's face darkened. Sarah. It was just a game, don't take it so seriously, okay? Katie and I broke up ages ago. There's nothing between us now. She just joined the company, and I'm the only person she can rely on. Can you not be so petty? As soon as he said that, everyone's expressions shifted. We were all professionals here. Every one of us had fought our way up alone. No one believed for a second that not having a connection in the office meant you couldn't survive. Katie chuckled sweetly. Steven, how could you say that? Sarah isn't the kind of person who holds grudges. Right, Sarah? I didn't answer. Everyone was giving us weird looks now. It was painfully obvious how biased Steven was toward Katie. And yet, despite everything, the one acting angry was still him. In Steven's eyes, I saw a calculating gaze, like he was waiting, expecting me to explode any second. He was used to that version of me, the one who lost her mind whenever Katie showed up. He'd stand there coldly while I screamed, then toss me a gift and mumble some casual concern afterward. And I, like an idiot, would forgive him all over again. I couldn't even count how many fights we had after Katie returned from abroad. The worst one made me storm out and disappear for a few days. He only sent one text, asking where his favorite tie was, and I ran back like a fool. Every silent war between us ended with me calming myself in the dead of night. Then going back to him with my head lowered, asking for peace. In this relationship, I loved too much. And that meant, I was never going to win. After all, the one who falls first is always at a disadvantage. Back in college, Steven Nelson was the ultimate campus heartthrob. Art school girls used to block his path just to ask for his number. But he'd reject every one of them, without even a frown. Then one day, that same untouchable flower looked at me and said, "Do you want to be my girlfriend?" I couldn't believe it. Everyone's dream guy suddenly became my boyfriend. I was a nobody. But one morning, I woke up and found a priceless treasure in my hands. I was thrilled, so thrilled I was scared it was a dream. It wasn't until I saw his name in my contact list that it felt real. I was afraid he'd lose interest. So I shared everything with him. Brought him food on time. Tried to solidify our bond. But he always responded. With cool indifference. And I didn't think anything was wrong with that. Because that's how high-ranking flowers are, cold to everyone. I believed that if I just stayed warm enough for long enough, he'd eventually melt. Turns out, he wasn't cold. He just didn't care. He was never cold, he just warmed up for someone else. Someone nudged me gently. That's when I snapped out of my thoughts. And realized that everyone in the room was staring at me. Steven Nelson said coldly, "Sarah Gray, if you're going to throw a fit, take it home. Don't ruin the vibe here." I didn't want to be the third wheel any longer anyway. Well then, I'll be leaving. Without looking at Steven's face, so dark it could drip ink, I picked up my bag and stood up. Behind me, Katie Miller's soft voice floated over. "Steven, do you think Sarah's mad at me again?" Steven replied gently, "No, that's just her weird temper." Once I left, the atmosphere livened up again. As I closed the door, I caught a glimpse of Steven and Katie locking arms, downing a glass of wine together. He had never been this warm with me in public. Seeing them so close, I wouldn't be surprised if they got a hotel room tonight. Honestly, they looked more like a loving couple than I ever did with him. They always hid behind the excuse of just friends to relive the sweetness of their old romance. Those subtle hints, lingering gazes, the constant towing of boundaries. Like when Katie wore Steven's suit jacket because it was cold. Or insisted on sitting in the front seat just so she could feed him snacks while he drove. Everything they did was right on the line. If I got upset, I was accused of overthinking. And now, hiding behind booze and games, they kissed in front of everyone like I didn't exist. Steven believed I loved him too much to ever leave. That's why he acted so fearlessly. I hadn't even made it out of the restaurant when a coworker messaged me, "Sis Gray, you really just left like that? You're not even gonna rein President Nelson in? After you left, they got even more outrageous." I stared at the message quietly. Like I could control him. After so many years of holding on, I was tired too. Outside the hotel, the cold wind blew through my hair. It swept away the heaviness that had been clinging to me for so long. I locked my phone and tucked it into my bag, wrapped my coat tighter, and walked straight into the chilly night. Suddenly, I realized, I might finally be able to stop loving Steven Nelson. I returned to the villa. This was the first property Steven bought after starting his company. We designed and decorated every corner together. The coffee table still held my favorite flowers. The bookshelf next to the couch displayed his favorite books. I had already treated this place as home, loved it just as I had loved Steven. I let out a bitter laugh. Turns out, they didn't need my love. They had more than enough sweetness between them. I showered and collapsed into bed. Around 3 a.m. the clatter of noise from downstairs told me Steven was back. I didn't think he would come home tonight. Usually after drinking, he came back reeking of alcohol in the middle of the night. I used to leave the light on in the living room, ready with hangover soup and a warm bath. Maybe it was the sudden absence of that light. He stumbled and fell on his way in. Steven pushed the door open, expecting the usual screaming match. But this time, he was met with complete silence. For the first time ever, he was wrong. This time, I stayed completely calm. So calm, it didn't even feel like me. He must have sensed something was off. He walked to the bed, drenched in the scent of alcohol mixed with jasmine, the kind Katie liked. "Sarah Gray?" He called my name. I pretended to be asleep. He stood there, watching me for a few minutes. Then he scoffed, turned around, and slammed the door so hard the whole house shook. I knew he was mad I didn't give him any attention. He was always free to be angry. Because he believed I would always be the one to apologize. The next morning, after breakfast, Steven came downstairs rubbing his temples. A hangover headache, no doubt. I used to feel bad for him. I even learned how to make all kinds of hangover remedies just for him. Without looking at me, he said, "Make another sandwich. Katie likes them." I almost laughed. Did he really think I was their personal maid? Steven sat at the table and noticed it was completely empty. Not only did Katie's breakfast not exist, he didn't have one either. He watched me carry empty plates in and out of the kitchen, and finally opened his mouth. "I drank too much last night. Katie drove me home. With her driving, we almost got into an accident. I was packing my lunch for work and barely reacted." "Oh? That's great," I said absently. He frowned. In the past, if I'd heard he nearly got into a crash, I'd have freaked out. I'd drag him to get a full body checkup, maybe even tie him to my waist like a toddler. But now? I couldn't care less. "Stop being difficult. Just make breakfast for me and Katie, and I'll let you sit in the front seat next time, alright?" His tone sounded like he was giving me a favor, like I was throwing a childish tantrum. I paused and looked at him. Ever since Katie joined the company, he started going out of his way to pick her up. At first, Katie and I fought constantly over who sat in the front seat. Steven settled it, Katie gets the front. She gets carsick. When he gave up that seat, he didn't once consider the fact that I get carsick too. And now he was offering it to me like I was some beggar. I didn't want it anymore. "No thanks. I'll take the subway." He went silent. He probably didn't even remember when I started commuting by subway. Every day, we'd wait for Katie to finish her makeup. And because of that, all 3 of us were late constantly. It delayed my projects too. So I stopped carpooling with them altogether. Besides, watching them flirt all the way to work. It was unbearable. As I kept packing, Steven added, "I might be home late tonight." "Okay. It's Katie's birthday. She doesn't have many friends in North City. She asked me to grab a drink with her." "Okay." I grabbed my bag and headed out. "Sarah Gray!" Steven suddenly shouted. I looked back, puzzled. He stared at me in disbelief. "You're not going to stop me this time." I tilted my head. What was with him today? I glanced at the clock. "I'm running late. We'll talk later." I saw him standing there, frozen. Because that was his usual trick. Whenever we had problems, he stayed calm and distant. Like I was acting out a one-woman play. I'd try to get his attention through shouting or arguing. But he'd just find some excuse to leave. Sometimes, he wouldn't even bother with an excuse. He'd just slam the door and walk away, leaving me to deal with all the emotions alone. But as I closed the door behind me this time, I thought, damn, not facing the problem actually feels good. No wonder he kept doing it. It works every time. Today, Steven Nelson treated the whole company to dessert. My coworkers were buzzing with curiosity. Did we land another big project? President Nelson seems unusually happy. Maybe we hit our annual targets early? I smiled. None of their guesses were right. Today was Katie Miller's birthday. He wanted to treat just one person, but used the excuse of buying dessert for the entire company to do it. Maybe he was just trying to cheer her up. But honestly, none of it mattered to me anymore. That afternoon, I got a message from Steven. Did you like the cupcake? I paused, a little stunned. Was he messaging the wrong person? I glanced at the small mango cupcake on my desk, the cream already melting. It was from my favorite bakery, pricey and always with a long line. Steven really went all out for Katie Miller. I had no intention of replying. Then another message popped up. It's your favorite, blueberry. I let out a cold laugh. He really did send the message to the wrong person. The one on my desk was mango. The blueberry one had been in my hands earlier. But Katie Miller had swapped it. She came over to my desk and said with mock surprise, "Oh? I was wondering where my blueberry cupcake went. Turns out it was here. Steven picked this one just for me, it's their signature flavor." Then she tossed a box onto my desk. It had been sitting out all day. I didn't touch it. Besides, I'm allergic to mango. I threw it straight into the trash. When I looked up, Steven Nelson was standing right in front of me, staring. His eyes flicked from me to the trash can. His lips pressed into a tight line. Steven's office was on the top floor. He rarely came down to the project department. So why was he here? The answer came quickly. Katie Miller beamed and wrapped her arm around his. "Steven, I told you to wait in the garage. Coming to my office looks bad." I didn't say a word, but the people around me started clicking their tongues. These were all my teammates, people I had mentored and brought up. Of course they couldn't stand Katie's behavior. Steven shot them a cold glance, and the room immediately fell silent. That night, Steven didn't come home. In the past, I would have panicked, overthinking everything. Calling him non-stop, demanding to know where he was. But not this time. I went to bed and went to work the next day like nothing happened. He didn't show up the following day either. Neither did Katie. That evening, Steven finally came home. I was heading upstairs after dinner when he grabbed my wrist. "Aren't you going to ask me where I was?" I looked at him calmly. "And how should I ask?" His temper flared. "Sarah Gray. You're not usually like this." I thought for a moment and nodded. "You're right. I wasn't like this before." He lowered his eyes, his tone softening. "I drank too much and stayed at the hotel. Nothing happened between me and Katie." Then he added, almost hurt, "I drank so much, and you didn't even call me." I didn't know what kind of act he was putting on. He used to complain I was too clingy, and now he was upset I didn't check on him? It was ridiculous. The next day, I got a message from Katie Miller. An ultrasound report, 8 weeks pregnant. Attached was a photo of Steven accompanying her at the hospital. I froze. So that's why neither of them came to work. He was at Katie's prenatal appointment. I was shocked, sure. But I accepted it. After all, the signs had been there for a long time. The real surprise was that it hadn't happened sooner. I typed a reply to Katie, "Just slept together 2 nights ago, and now you're pregnant? That's quick." Her response came fast, "Can't you read dates? Need a reminder? It was on your anniversary." What kind of sick joke was that? Steven had spent that day with me. For once, he'd actually made time for our anniversary. Even though he usually found it meaningless. That day, I had a fever and fell asleep early. He'd been unusually patient, feeding me medicine, wiping my sweat. Even though I was sick, my heart was warm. I thought, after all these years, maybe I'd finally melted his heart. But later that night, I woke up parched. He wasn't in bed. I called for him. No answer. I figured he'd gone downstairs to get water, so I waited. But sleep pulled me under again. So it was that night? The night I thought was sweet. Was laced with poison. While I was burning with fever, he left to find Katie. And now she's pregnant. Should I congratulate them? Then quietly bow out? "Sarah Gray, you'll congratulate me, right?" Katie sent another message. I ignored it. I focused all my energy on the final stretch of a major project. Eventually, I shoved the whole thing out of my mind. Until lunch break. When Steven showed up with a tearful Katie in tow. He slammed his phone on my desk with a loud bang. Everyone in the office jumped. On the screen were the 2 photos Katie had just sent me. "Sarah Gray, was this your doing?" He was fuming, eyes blazing. I was confused. Did he seriously think I got her pregnant? I looked at him in disbelief. How could he twist this around on me? Steven took a deep breath. "I'm talking about you posting Katie's pregnancy on the company forum." I was genuinely baffled. Why would I do something like that? It's not my baby, why would I go around telling people? I have zero motive. If it wasn't you, then who? Katie only told you about it. You knew too. And so did she. What gives you the right to assume it was me? If not you, then who else? Who else would go out of their way to ruin her reputation? I laughed in disbelief. Why was I automatically the culprit? He would trust Katie Miller without question, and doubt me without hesitation. Ruin her reputation? Don't pin that on me. If she hadn't done what she did, would her reputation even be at stake? Steven Nelson was about to say more, but Katie cut in. Sarah Gray, I was just happy about the pregnancy. Besides Steven, you're the only person I know in the company. So I wanted to share the good news with you. I let out a cold chuckle. Wow. Couldn't find your dad? Couldn't find your mom? So you decided to share it with your romantic rival? Because you figured I wouldn't smack the mistress in public. Her face went pale. She murmured, stunned, Sarah Gray. I really thought of you as a friend. A friend? You mean like your lip friend Steven Nelson? Do all your friendships come with babies too? She threw herself into Steven's arms, crying like a fragile flower. Steven finally snapped. Enough. You have no idea what Katie's been through, and you still treat her like this? How could you be so cruel? Cruel? After 7 years together, that's what he called me. Whatever she went through, what did it have to do with me? Steven's voice turned colder. Delete the post by the end of today. Or get out of this company. After they left, I collapsed into my chair, tears finally spilling out. That post wasn't even mine. How was I supposed to delete it? And now Steven wanted me out of the company. A company that wasn't built by him alone. It carried all of my efforts too. When he first started his business, I stuck by him through everything. Eating plain bread, living in a basement. When his first startup failed, I worked 3 jobs just to help him pay off his debts. From day one of this company, I was part of the project department, working day and night to earn my spot as project manager. Then he parachuted Katie Miller in, handing her the deputy manager position overnight. In one day, she walked the path it took me years to build. So this was the plan. Kick me out and hand my seat to Katie. My coworkers came over, voices full of sympathy. The mistress and the cheater are so shameless. I don't know what President Nelson is thinking. Katie can't hold a candle to Sis Gray. Don't cry, Sis Gray. I knew they meant well. I thanked them, then sent them back to work. I didn't stay sad for long. I returned to my tasks, as always. By the end of the workday, it was Friday. Perfect timing. I'd already arranged to move out over the weekend. I'd found a place online earlier in the week and settled everything with the landlord. I'd already packed most of my belongings. Aside from my clothes, I wasn't taking much else. When you break up, it's best to make a clean cut. Steven didn't come home that night either. His usual pattern after a fight. He had enough properties to crash at. Me? I was the one left staring at an empty villa. But I wasn't going to wait anymore. Monday morning, I got another message from Steven Nelson. Why haven't you deleted the post? If I have to do it myself, it won't end well for you. I stared at the message, unmoved. Clearly, he didn't love Katie Miller that much either. Letting her get dragged online for 2 full days. I heard someone had even posted the scandal on major forums. The comments roasting Katie were brutal. But I'd been too busy these past 2 days to care. Still, I held back and replied, it wasn't me. So how can I delete it? Did I forget to say it in person? Let me say it now, Steven Nelson, we're done. I originally planned to tell him in person the night before. But after waiting all evening, he never came home. Now I was glad he didn't. This way was cleaner. Before I even stepped into the office, I heard Steven yelling, where's Sarah Gray? Why isn't she here yet? I opened the door and nearly stumbled from the shock. Luckily, Noah Jones caught me. Are you okay? You look so pale. Not feeling well? If you are, just go home and rest. I shook my head. I'm fine. Steven saw us and abruptly stood up, his eyes locked on our linked arms. Why are you two together? Sarah Gray, get over here. I gave him a nod and calmly walked over. Straight to the Jones Group's table. Steven's eyes widened. What's that supposed to mean? That's the Jones Group side. I nodded. Then I'm sitting in the right place. You're siding with Jones Group? Against me? Noah Jones had always been Steven's business rival. They'd fought tooth and nail in the market for years. Now that I was with Noah, Steven's shock didn't surprise me one bit. Did you forget? I already resigned. I wrapped everything up on Friday. He told me to delete the post or get out. Well, I left. Technically, that makes it a dismissal. So I'm still owed severance pay. Steven was speechless. You should have just deleted the post. I didn't mean what I said. It was just anger. I didn't take it as a joke. I ignored him completely. Noah handed me a cup of hot water. Feeling better? Where does it hurt? I hired you to work for me, not to land in the hospital on your first day. I gave him a small smile and waved off his concern. He frowned. Don't tell me you're fine. You're pale as a ghost. But I'd done full makeup today. Blush, foundation, the works. How could I possibly look pale? Steven sat at the other table, glaring at us like he'd just caught his wife cheating. The bidding meeting began. Katie Miller was leading the presentation for Nelson Group. On the Jones Group side, I was in charge. Back at Nelson, I'd always handled these matters. Katie hadn't even been with the company that long. She lacked real skills and had barely attended any bidding events. Her pitch was shaky at best. Still, unsurprisingly, Nelson Group won the bid. Katie stopped me afterward. Sarah Gray, how could you go work for Jones Group? Don't you realize you're violating your non-compete agreement? I crossed my arms and looked at her. Well, I guess I have you to thank for that, don't I? And by the way, I never signed one. Back when I joined the company, I'd only signed a standard employment contract. Steven Nelson never imagined I'd leave him. I didn't either. So there was no non-compete clause between us. Katie looked at me, full of righteous indignation. But this is too much. You know Jones Group is our biggest rival, and you still chose to work against us. Weren't you Steven's girlfriend? I smiled faintly. Yeah. Thanks to you too, that ended. Steven Nelson stepped forward, but Noah Jones instinctively moved to stand in front of me. Steven gritted his teeth, fury in his eyes. Fine. Sarah Gray, don't come crying later. Then he pulled Katie away. But fate wasn't done messing with us. We ran into them again in the parking garage. Noah was helping me into the car, holding me gently. Steven stormed over and yanked the door open, his eyes bloodshot with rage. Sarah Gray, you've been hooking up with him this whole time, haven't you? That's why you ran to him the second you quit. I peeked at him from Noah's arms, expression calm. If that's what you want to think, I can't stop you. My indifference only enraged him more. We'd switched roles now. I was treating him the way he used to treat me. Turns out, he couldn't handle it. Katie fanned the flames beside him. Steven, didn't I tell you? Sarah Gray looks all sweet and innocent, but behind your back, she's a real flirt. Enough. Steven snapped. Rarely had I heard him speak to Katie like that. Who are you to talk about my girlfriend like that? Katie's face turned ghostly pale. Tears welled in her eyes. Steven, how could you yell at me? Noah, still holding me, turned back and smiled coolly at them. President Nelson, don't blame the wrong person. Yes, I've reached out to Sarah Gray several times. Steven's face twisted. He grabbed Noah's collar. Say that again if you dare. Noah didn't flinch. And she turned me down every single time. She was loyal. To you and to Nelson Group. You two gave me an opening. Otherwise, I never would have been able to poach her. Steven froze in place. Noah calmly pushed him off, straightened his wrinkled collar, and patted his shoulder. Thanks, President Nelson. As the car pulled away, I looked back through the rearview mirror. Steven was still standing there, stunned. Noah glanced at me with concern. Sorry about the delay. Are you okay? Want me to take you to the hospital? I clutched my stomach. The pain was sharp, and the sweat had ruined my carefully done makeup. Steven didn't find out I'd moved out until the third day I was hospitalized. It wasn't hard to locate me. Even though I'd blocked every way he could reach me. When he burst into the hospital room, his face was a mess of panic and relief. His eyes grew complicated when he saw me in bed. Sarah, are you okay? Is something wrong? I saw the guilt flash across his face. He held a wrinkled piece of paper in his hand. It was the pregnancy test result I'd left on the nightstand. The one from the day of the company party. I'd planned to surprise him with it. But his surprise was even greater. Later, I left the report where he could see it. But he never noticed. Not once. Back then, I still held out hope. I thought maybe if he found out we were having a child, he'd finally love me. Just a little more. I was willing to give our 7 years one last shot. But eventually, I realized, it wasn't worth it. There'd always be someone else to bear his child. Even if not Katie Miller, there'd be another woman. It was time to let go of him, and of myself. What's the point of telling you? Didn't you already get Katie pregnant? What? She's not pregnant with my child. Steven shot back, flustered. Oh? That's too bad then. Sarah Gray, what are you saying? You thought that baby was mine? It doesn't matter anymore. I turned to the window and stopped looking at him. Steven panicked and grabbed my hand. What doesn't matter anymore? Her pregnancy. And you. Neither of you matter anymore. His voice cracked. Don't joke around. You're pregnant with my child. We'll get married. We'll be a family. I'd followed him for 7 years. How many times had I dreamed of marrying him? But he always said, career first. Marriage can wait. So we worked. And when success came, he said it still wasn't stable. So we worked harder. When things were finally stable, Katie Miller showed up. He never even promised he'd marry me. It was all just my wishful thinking. And when he and Katie became mutual, I chose to step away. I pulled my hand free. The baby's gone. I'm not marrying you. The day I moved out, I went to the hospital. Steven's face went stiff. What do you mean? You got rid of the baby? How could you be so heartless? I said nothing. He stared at me like he was trying to bore a hole through my chest. Why? Why would you do this? Was it because of Katie? I've told you 1,000 times, there's nothing between us. The baby's not even mine. I looked at him, calm. Then tell me. When the company forum exploded with rumors about you and Katie, why didn't you say a word? He hesitated. It was about Katie's reputation. I laughed. Her reputation matters. Mine doesn't. So even now, you still think I'm the one who leaked it? I handed him the messages Katie had sent me. He didn't even look surprised. Which meant, he already knew she had contacted me. October 23rd. That was our anniversary. Where were you that night? Steven's gaze darted away. He couldn't look me in the eye. So you didn't even bother to check. You just assumed I was the one who posted it on the company forum? He argued, it couldn't have been her. You have no idea what she's been through. He raised his voice. I'll tell you where I was that night. She called me in tears, saying she was being followed. If you hadn't clung to me that night, she wouldn't have been hurt by those scumbags. I froze. Was he seriously blaming me for this? That night, I'd had a fever so high I could barely think. I hadn't even noticed whether he took a call or not. But why? Why was he putting this on me? She wouldn't call the police, or you wouldn't? Steven Nelson, do you hear yourself? You couldn't save her, and your guilt is eating you alive. So you need someone to take the fall? And of all people, you chose me? I did nothing wrong. Cornered by the truth, he lashed out. But it's not like we blamed you outright. I let out a bitter laugh. It was the first time I truly saw the real face of the man I'd loved for years. We parted on bad terms. Later, the IP address behind the forum post was revealed. It was Katie Miller. She posted it herself. The entire company erupted in shock. The IT guy who exposed the truth came to join my team. Sis Gray, you have to take me in. I rubbed my temples, a little amused. Fine, one more won't make a difference. Lately, I'd been approached by quite a few people from the old company. Most were veterans from when Nelson Group had just started. They'd seen with their own eyes how Steven Nelson changed. As the company grew, he became more and more like a typical boss, calculating and cold. Meanwhile, I stayed in the trenches, leading projects. Without realizing it, I'd earned a lot of loyalty. Most of the original team had left with me. Only Katie Miller remained in the project department, left completely alone. Once I recovered at home, I felt at ease. The security in my new neighborhood was good. Steven Nelson hadn't tracked me down yet. Until one day, I stepped out of my building, and there he was, walking toward me. Sarah, I swear I didn't know Katie posted that on the forum. Please, forgive me. Hands in my pockets, I looked at him. Didn't know? Or didn't want to know? Afraid the truth would ruin the image of Katie Miller in his heart. So he never even tried to investigate. But if he had wanted to know, all it would have taken was one word. Everything inside the company was at his fingertips. I didn't want to waste time arguing anymore. When I tried to walk around him, he grabbed my arm. And you? Sarah Gray. She never confirmed the baby was mine, but you still believed it. You even got rid of our child. I looked at his sharp profile and noticed his eyes were red. That's right. Because I didn't want to believe you. Just like you never believed me. What's the problem with that? His face was filled with hurt. Why are you doing this to me? Familiar tactic, isn't it? It's how you always treated me. Now that the tables had turned, he couldn't handle it. How double-faced. Steven stared into my eyes, as if searching for any trace of love left for him. But he found none. He looked crushed. Sarah, please don't do this. Come back to me. I promise I won't see her again. I really don't love her anymore. Back when I was at my lowest, she left me to run off with another man overseas. Now that I've made it, she came crawling back. I just wanted to prove something to myself. Sarah, the only one I love is you. I felt dazed. This was the first time, after all these years. He'd actually said he loved me. And it came at a time when I no longer loved him. I remembered when Katie Miller heard Steven had made it big. She came back from abroad and quickly rekindled their romance. One of his business partners once asked, if you love Katie so much, why are you still with Sarah? What did he say then? Katie left me when I was nothing. So I found someone who could suffer through the hard times with me, just to prove a point. I had suffered through a lot for him. He'd won his little game with Katie. No wonder he suddenly started dating me in college. He probably noticed how hard I worked. Part-time jobs, late, night tutoring sessions. He must have chosen me carefully, knowing I'd be the one who could take all the hardship. I laughed at myself. That part of the story, where I endure suffering, is over. The part where we enjoy life together? That was never meant for me. He can find someone else. It has nothing to do with me anymore. I pushed his hand away. But I don't love you anymore, Steven Nelson. I walked away, fast and steady. My coat brushed past his hand. A brief contact, never to happen again. Just like us. 7 years of love ended without fanfare. And somehow, it didn't affect my life much at all. I just moved to a new place. Started working somewhere else. Life didn't change much. Turns out, you can live without anyone. When I first realized there was something going on between Steven Nelson and Katie Miller, I cried. I fought. I doubted myself, wondering if I really was that unworthy. Maybe that's why, after 7 years, Steven still couldn't love me? But later, I came to understand. It wasn't that I wasn't good enough. It was that he never loved me to begin with. This relationship had always been a one-sided celebration. Only I showed up to the party. Did I hate them? At first, yes. I didn't understand why they had to treat me that way. But in the end, I let it go. He was my choice. And so was loving him. Love is a journey, an experience. It was never about the outcome. And if I had the courage to love, I also had the courage to lose. Besides, all those years helping Steven build his company. I learned a lot. If I hadn't, how could a girl who grew up in the countryside have made it this far? Noah Jones stepped up beside me, both of us standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out over the city. What's so interesting out there? President Gray just landed another huge deal. Wanna grab a drink after work to celebrate? It's the one we stole from Nelson Group, by the way. Steven's company can't handle big contracts anymore. Ever since you left, a lot of the old employees lost heart. People are afraid Steven will throw them under the bus when it's convenient. So many of them followed you, including some of his core team. Now his company's a mess, disjointed and leaderless. He's lost several projects and had to pay big penalties. Word is, they can't secure new funding. If he doesn't turn things around soon, they'll be forced into bankruptcy and restructuring. At first, he still came looking for me. Told me he'd fired Katie Miller. Begged me to come back. Offered me shares. But no matter what deal he tried to make, I never wavered. Because just like how I'd helped him build his business not for the money, but for him. Now that he was in crisis, he no longer had time to come crawling back. As for Katie Miller, after being fired, the forum post she made was leaked online. It went viral. She was publicly shamed. People came forward to expose her, not her first time being the other woman. She's been doing this since college. The only reason she went abroad was because the wife of her sugar daddy found out. So he had to ship her out of the country. Then even more dirt surfaced from overseas. She was wild. Totally shameless. Now, she was a walking scandal. Hated by everyone. Desperate, she went crawling back to Steven Nelson for help. Only then did he realize. The pure, perfect girl he worshipped was all just an illusion. They fought. He pushed her down the stairs. Katie Miller was paralyzed. Her family pressed charges. Steven Nelson was sentenced to 10 years in prison. I didn't attend the trial. One day, I passed by Nelson Group's old building. And saw the company sign being torn down. A quiet sigh escaped me. Noah Jones crossed his arms and stood beside me with a grin. What's that look for? Feeling sentimental? President Gray, are you still loyal to the old camp? His teasing swept away the last flickers of nostalgia in my heart. I smirked. Well, now that the old company's gone, President Jones doesn't have to worry about me running off anymore. Noah chuckled. That's true. Come on, drink. I raised an eyebrow. Why not? Yes, I've been hurt by love. But I'm not afraid. I've walked through storms and crossed oceans. And I still have the courage to run toward love again.